Good afternoon. Marc Lowe in Tokyo. I recently released via my distributor two things. One is Marc Lowe, the Angels of Time. I've spoken about that release many times on this page. That got an official release on 4/24. And the same day, although there was a slight delay, but it's got a release date of 4/24, This Dark Shroud, the Unbecoming. And I've spoken about both of these releases to some degree on this page. I want to talk, however, about This Dark Shroud, and I want to actually talk about This Dark Shroud as a project. Again, I've spoken about it before. Why This Dark Shroud? Why again do I bring it back in 2024? Why also did I choose to create a cover that is imageless for the Unbecoming? Because I had actually thought there were three cover ideas I had. The first was shared on the first video with my face and the mic, kind of a double image I made. And actually I had re-effectorized it so it wasn't red like the fire video, but I decided against that one. And then I did another sort of self-shot photo of myself lying back and black and white, and I decided ultimately not to use that either. I had effectorized it and it looked pretty cool and all, and I thought, no, this is the Unbecoming. And I could have done another sort of alternative abstract cover, like the signs were there as abstract and vanity is kind of abstract. But I just went with this like really plain black cover with only text, This Dark Shroud, the Unbecoming, with slight color accents in places. So it's the Unbecoming. What I want to talk about today in terms of this new album and in terms of This Dark Shroud and in terms of This Dark Shroud, especially from 2023, last year, but also going back to the very beginning of the inception of the idea of the project, which was all the way back in 2017. And the story goes like this. I was a band person in 2016. My band broke up. I did various side projects, and actually right around the time I had formed the side project I had called Laughing Moon, which was a trio including myself, Tana, which is the name he went by on guitar, and then also Joe Shotaro on bass, who later became my bassist as a duo under the name This Dark Shroud. So that's part of the history as well. So I formed this trio, Laughing Moon. We performed live only twice in the end, because Tana had to leave, and that's how eventually I ended up doing the duo project with Joe as This Dark Shroud. So I sat down one day and I created a track using samples and loops, which I had just started using around that time. I was still getting my feet off the ground with Logic Pro X. I had been using GarageBand until early 2017, late 2016. Bought my first keyboard in 2017. And without confusing the listener, this actually connects to Angels of Time in a weird way too, because around that time I bought my first chord keyboard, started using Logic, right? And started doing electronica. And I've talked about this before, probably Black Nail and those things were the first experiments. And I had re-recorded those in 2017 with the keyboard, the Korg. The first pieces I did on the Korg, the very first piece I ever did in Logic on the Korg was a track called Poppies for Sally. And if you look at Angels of Time, which was released the same day under Marc Lowe as This Dark Shroud, the Unbecoming, April 24th, 2 days ago, that has been remixed, or had been remixed and included on that album. That's the very first thing I did in Logic with the keyboard. So around that time I was experimenting, and I did Angel of Death in 2017. I talked about this on this page. I redid some of the songs of that for Angels of Time. So that's a Marc Lowe release. But then getting back to this period when This Dark Shroud started. So I had the Korg, I had Logic, I started doing these experiments, and I had just around that time started experimenting, like I say, with loop library and things like this. And I sort of discovered a new sound for myself and created this track that was entitled ultimately Undo. And the idea I had for this Dark Shroud project was that mostly it would be instrumental, it would have some vocal, but the vocals would be sort of not the main focus of This Dark Shroud. As Marc Lowe, I was singing and performing with keyboard and backing tracks and singing. And sometimes playing guitar and stuff too, acoustic or electric. For This Dark Shroud, the idea was it was more of a recording project, and it would be electronica, and it would have vocals, but they would be sort of effectorized in the background. Undo is kind of like that. You can't undo the past, and sort of effectors all over the voice. And once I decided to create a separate project name for that song, and eventually what became the recording project This Dark Shroud in 2017, I added This Dark Shroud to the beginning of the track, the spoken word with the effectors on the voice, and that became sort of something that I've done again as I've recorded things as This Dark Shroud. In terms of connecting Undo from the very first track I ever did as This Dark Shroud, if I were to say there's a song that was similar in style for me, tone for me, concept for me, 2023 last year, Vanity was that track. It was, oh, this reminds me of Undo, this reminds me of This Dark Shroud. That's how the project reignited last year, and I've talked about this on this page. Again, the project originally started as a kind of tribute to industrial music. The 9 LP has covers of How to Destroy Angels, which is a 9 Inch Nails side project, The Drowning, and also North Star by IMX, which is a kind of electronica, sort of quite, semi-industrial. I mean, he's collaborated with Kevin Key of Skinny Puppy, for instance. It's very close genre-wise. So the Unbecoming is the latest sort of version of This Dark Shroud. It's 2024. 2024 is This Dark Shroud. Last year had the 3 albums, as I said, right? Vanity, 9, and The Signs Were There. And I've kind of talked about those. This one I think is more abstract and more instrumental even than The Signs Were There. And Vanity, 9 was a more vocal album. Again, sort of songs that I redid as This Dark Shroud that were electronic songs like Black Nail, but also this album on the whole is electronic. It has some vocals, but kind of like the original conception, the vocals are sort of secondary to the sounds, textures, atmospheres, beats. It does have a lot of beats. There are 2 tracks that don't. Nietzsche's Curse, which I posted separately, is a vocal song that I improvised, and I used my Surin flute. This is the first This Dark Shroud album that has Surin on it, because I started playing it earlier this year. And the last This Dark Shroud album recorded last year, so before this. So this has Surin on it. And that track has no beats, and I think one other track is sans beats, but this has beats, Fire Engulfed, Liar, and most of the rest of it is beat heavy, in keeping with the This Dark Shroud feel, image, sound. Where am I going from here with This Dark Shroud? I don't know. I mean, like I say, it started as a recording project, and I didn't go and talk about, I formed the duo with Joe, and we did for just under a year. We performed a lot of live shows together. We actually did recordings. I released them as Marc Lowe and Joe Shotaro, those recordings, because I wanted to keep it separate from This Dark Shroud, which is now back to being a solo project, though last summer Joe and I performed on stage as This Dark Shroud together. I invited him to do so when I went to Fukuoka, and I released This Dark Shroud live, summer live, with Joe Shotaro on about half the tracks. He played bass for me. Black Nail, Dials in the Bathroom, Fleshy Air, those kinds of tracks that we had performed together in Laughing Moon and also in This Dark Shroud in 2017, 18, 19. Okay. But it's back to being really a solo recording project, and I sometimes perform live under the name, but it's gotten really mashed together with Marc Lowe. Sometimes I've been booked as This Dark Shroud, but actually it was a show that I end up playing acoustically or doing something that really I was just performing as Marc Lowe, if you will. And sometimes I perform as Marc Lowe and I think, oh, this could have been booked as This Dark Shroud, because I'm basically doing, you know, like This Dark Shroud type things. The line is blurred, but in terms of the albums, there's Marc Lowe in here, and there's This Dark Shroud and Marc Lowe, for sure. But to me, the Unbecoming sounds and feels like This Dark Shroud, for sure. And with the black cover, no image, and the new song, Fire, the Unbecoming. This is the final mix of it here playing behind me. I didn't really talk much about the message of this album. I'll just say a few words. It's the Unbecoming. First, if we first become something or feel that we must become something, then we must unbecome. It's not negative. I wanted to say this. It's not a negative meaning at all. It's, you know, chipping away at the layers of compulsions, bad habits, negative ways of thinking, and stripping those off and shedding the old skin, like the reptile, you know, to use a different metaphor there, that, you know, shedding the skin like the snake or the cocoon or whatever you want to call it, and opening oneself up to light and good things. Just being open to that without your ego getting in the way, which is why in the song the lyric is, first you must destroy your ego or dissolve your ego, however you want to put that, and unbecome so that you may become something greater than your limited perception of who and what you are, your limited sets of likes and dislikes and all that kind of thing. So that's the Unbecoming. It's not negative. It's not an easy process, but it is ultimately a healing, positive process. And that's the end of the album. Thank you very much for your time. Marc Lowe in Tokyo. I'll be seeing you soon.